So, what do you think is the single most important factor for a company's success? A visionary CEO? Maybe a killer product? Well, today we're going to dig into a pretty counterintuitive idea that the real secret to survival has almost nothing to do with what happens inside a company's walls. Think about it. Whenever a company hits a massive home run or, strikes out completely, what's the first thing we do? We usually point to a brilliant CEO, right? Or some groundbreaking internal process, or maybe a team of super motivated employees. It's kind of the standard story we all tell ourselves. And look, there's a good reason for that. We're just naturally wired to focus on the people and the processes we can actually see. It's a classic cognitive bias. We pin success or failure on the direct actions of individuals because, well, they're the most visible, most accessible parts of the whole puzzle. But what if that's only half the story? What if we're all looking in the totally wrong place? The argument we're exploring today is that organizations are just inescapably bound to their environment. The real forces that decide a company's fate, they start outside its four walls. So let's just call this common way of thinking what it really is: the inside-out illusion. It's this deep-seated belief that internal factors are the primary cause of everything that happens to an organization. And I mean, just look at these common explanations. They're incredibly familiar, aren't they? We hear them all the time. If profits are up, the CEO is a genius. If morale is tanking, it's gotta be poor management. These are the go-to answers, and every single one of them reinforces that inside-out way of looking at things. Psychologically, this makes total sense. We tend to see outcomes as the result of someone's personal motivation and skill. It gives us a feeling of control, right? Because if the problem is a person, hey, you can just replace the person. But what if the problem isn't the actor? What if the problem is the stage itself? And that right there brings us to the absolute core of this analysis. Let's flip the script and start looking at the stage. The idea that to truly understand an organization, you have to first understand the world it lives in. This quote from Pfeffer and Solancic is really the foundation of what's called the resource dependence perspective. Here's the crucial point. No organization is self-sufficient. Nope. It survives by getting resources from an environment that's often unpredictable and, frankly, undependable. Survival is an external game. And you see this play out in the real world constantly. Take the story of a student working at a fast food joint on campus. They saw low morale, unhappy workers, and they immediately blamed bad management. But the real reason management didn't care about employee happiness? It was the external labor market. There was a practically limitless supply of students who needed part-time work. So the environment, not the manager, was dictating the internal culture. This is a brilliant way to understand the difference between being efficient and being effective. Back when Governor Ronald Reagan criticized California's university system, the administration responded by showing how efficient they were, educating students for lower cost. But Reagan's criticism was about effectiveness. He was questioning whether they should be producing those kinds of students in the first place. See the difference? Efficiency is internal. Effectiveness is an external judgment. And if you think leaders have total control, well, think again. A study of 30 U.S. cities found that mayors accounted for less than 10% of the variation in most city budget categories. The vast majority of spending was dictated by external stuff, like economic cycles and demands from interest groups, not the person sitting in the corner office. Okay, so if the environment is that powerful, what's an organization supposed to do? Just float along at the mercy of outside forces? Not at all. The smartest organizations design their internal structures specifically to manage the external world. On one hand, you've got your classic bureaucracy. It's like a tank. It's powerful, it's reliable, but man, is it slow to turn. It's perfect for a stable, predictable environment. But on the other hand, you have the network organization. This is more like a school of fish. It's agile, it's adaptive, and it's built for a turbulent, constantly changing world. So what exactly is a network organization? It's a structure that's designed from the ground up to adapt. Instead of fixed roles and rigid chains of command, it forms and reforms relationships based on whatever project is at hand. It's self-designing, meaning it literally molds itself to the problem rather than trying to force the problem into some pre-existing box. But what does a self-designing adaptive organization actually look like in practice? Well, for a masterclass, let's take a look at one of the most successful companies of the modern era, Google. Just look at this timeline. In less than 2 decades, Google went from a simple search engine in '98 to buying YouTube in '06, launching massive platforms like Android, and then pushing into AI and VR by 2016. This is the very definition of a turbulent environment. A rigid bureaucracy would have just shattered under that pressure. Google had to be a network to survive. But you know what? Even Google had to learn this lesson the hard way. Early on, its engineer-led culture basically believed that managers were just unnecessary bureaucracy. But then they looked at their exit interview data and found a surprise. A lot of employees were leaving because of their managers. So, in true Google fashion, they used data to solve the problem with something called Project Oxygen. And this is what the data spit out. Good managers do matter. But look closely at what makes them good at Google. It's not about being a boss. It's about being a coach. Almost every single item on this list, empowering the team, not micromanaging, supporting careers, it's all about removing obstacles and enabling small, flexible teams to do their best work. It's the exact management style a network organization needs to win. Okay, this brings us to the final and maybe most crucial point. How do all these internal choices, from your management style to how you structure your teams, how does that all connect back to the outside world? You know Google's famous perks, the free food, the volleyball courts, all that stuff? They aren't just fun extras. They are a deliberate survival strategy. In a super competitive environment where the most critical resource you can get is top talent, a great culture is how you attract and keep the people you absolutely need to win. The late Tony Hsieh of Zappos said it perfectly. Your culture is your brand. What you build on the inside, how you treat your people, how you organize your work, what you value, that is ultimately how the outside world sees you and decides whether or not to do business with you. Your internal design becomes your external identity. So the next time you look at any organization, your own workplace, your school, even a government agency, ask yourself this one simple question. Is its structure designed simply to do its current tasks more cheaply and quickly? That's efficiency. Or is it designed to sense and adapt to the ever-changing demands of its environment? That's effectiveness. And in the long run, effectiveness is the only thing that actually guarantees survival.